and welcome to Daily News Simplified, the answer to what, why and hows of newspaper reading. Today I am going to discuss Delhi edition dated 24th January 2018 of The Hindu. So let's begin. The first important news appears on page 1, which says PM calls protectionism as dangerous as terrorism. So this news is about PM Modi's keynote address at the World Economic Forum's annual meeting, which is currently going on in Davos, Switzerland. So World Economic Forum is an international organization and it is very important from our UPSC exam point of view. So let us understand a few facts about the World Economic Forum. So World Economic Forum is an international institution which is committed to improving the state of the world by engaging a dialogue between business, political and academic leaders in order to shape a global agenda. So World Economic Forum basically is an important platform for discussion between all the business, political and academic leaders, and here they discuss about all the issues that are facing the world economy at present. Also, this organization is headquartered in Geneva, and the annual meeting of World Economic Forum takes place at Davos city of Switzerland every year at the end of January. So last year in the UPSC exam, a question was asked about the Global Gender Gap Index, and this index is published by the World Economic Forum. So from this perspective, it is very important for us to understand the major reports and indexes that are published by the World Economic Forum. So let us discuss them one by one. The first important report published by the World Economic Forum is the Global Competitiveness Report. This report assesses the competitiveness of countries through a Global Competitiveness Index. So let us see what this index actually measures. This index measures the ability of countries to provide high levels of prosperity to its citizens. This index is calculated on the basis of 12 categories, which are also known as pillars of competitiveness. Some of these pillars are institutions, infrastructure, health and education, labor market, financial market, and so on. This index was last published in 2017 and India's rank was 40. The next important report published by the World Economic Forum is the Global Risks Report. This report aims to identify and analyze the most important risks that are facing the global economy. This report has been published for the year 2018, and under this, 4 key issues have been identified. These are environment degradation, secondly, cyber security breach, thirdly, economic strains, and lastly, geopolitical tensions. The next important report published by the World Economic Forum is the Global Gender Gap Report. Now under this report, a Global Gender Gap Index is published, and this index measures gender gap as a metric of parity or equality between men and women. Now this gender gap index is also based on 4 indicators. These include educational attainment, health, economic opportunity, and political empowerment. This index was last calculated in 2017 and India's rank was 108. The next important index published by the World Economic Forum is the Inclusive Development Index. So this index is an annual assessment of the economic performance of countries. And as the name Inclusive Development Index itself suggests, inclusive development is that type of development which ensures that all marginalized and excluded groups of the society are equal stakeholders in the development process of the country. This index is also based on 3 pillars, which are growth and development, inclusion, and intergenerational equity. This index has been calculated for the year 2018 and India's rank is 62. The last important report that is published by the World Economic Forum is the Global Information Technology Report. This report also publishes an index which is called as Networked Readiness Index. Now, as the name of the report itself suggests, this report measures a country's success in creating conditions for transition to a digitized economy. This index was last calculated in 2016 and India's rank was 91. So till now we have discussed about World Economic Forum. What are the major reports that are published by World Economic Forum? In the current meeting of the forum, which is going on right now, the Indian Prime Minister has focused on promoting multilateralism and he has equated protectionism to terrorism. So he is against the policy of protectionism which is being adopted by some of the major economies of the world. So let us understand these two terms, multilateralism and protectionism, briefly. Multilateralism is aimed at promoting international trade between countries by removing trade barriers. These trade barriers are usually in the form of tariffs, quotas, and as we all know, the biggest organization which promotes multilateralism in the world is WTO. Now, what does protectionism mean? Protectionism is the practice of promoting a country's domestic industries from foreign competition, and this is done by putting import restrictions or trade barriers. So you can understand from these two definitions that multilateralism and protectionism are opposite of each other. And at present, India's stand at the World Economic Forum meeting is in favor of multilateralism. So from the prelims exam point of view, questions can be asked about World Economic Forum. What are the reports that are published by World Economic Forum? What are the major indexes that are published by World Economic Forum? What is its main role? And what are the issues that are discussed at the meetings of World Economic Forum? Also from the mains exam point of view, a question can be asked how international organizations play a role in addressing global issues. So here we can give the example of World Economic Forum. With this, we move on to the next article. The next important news appears on page 7, which reads, a scheme that draws scientists but leaves them in the lurch. So this news is pertaining to the Inspired scheme of the central government, and it talks about the issues that are being faced in the implementation of this scheme. Since this is a government scheme, it is important from the UPSC exam point of view, and we should briefly discuss this. So Inspire, or Innovation in Science Pursuit for Inspired Research, is a scholarship scheme which is being managed by the Center's Department of Science and Technology, which comes under Ministry of Science and Technology. Let us understand what exactly is there in this scheme. This scheme selects research scholars under 32 years of age in the field of science and technology in order to conduct research, and thereby it offers them a salary of rupees 80,000 a month plus an annual research grant worth rupees 7 lakh to conduct research at a university for 5 years. The main aim of this scheme is to help talented scientists go for independent research careers at Indian labs. So basically this aims to promote research and development in the field of science and technology. However, as the article suggests, there are some issues that are being faced in the implementation of this scheme. Let us discuss those issues briefly. Firstly, there are some complaints of harassment. There are also issues pertaining to poor fund disbursal under this scheme. And lastly, although this scheme aims to promote just research and development, there have been some complaints where very less research scholars have been absorbed as permanent faculties in the universities. So till now we have discussed about the Inspire scheme, which ministry implements the Inspire scheme, what exactly is undertaken in this scheme, what is its main aim, and what are the issues that are being faced in the implementation of this scheme. Since education is an important topic from the UPSC exam point of view, we can also briefly discuss how these issues pertaining to the scheme or the education sector in general should be addressed. Firstly, under the Inspire scheme, there should be some clarification made about employment. Although, as we have clearly understood that this scheme aims to promote research and development in the field of science, some clarification should be made to the students and a clear line should be drawn between the research and employment opportunity. Secondly, issues pertaining to fund dispersal should be addressed, as lack of availability of funds directly impacts the outcomes of a particular scheme. And lastly, some steps should be taken to bring about a structural change in the recruitment and administration process of the higher education system. And this should be done not only across science and technology but across all streams. As the article also suggests that as per UGC data, 1/4 of the assistant professor positions in various universities are still lying vacant. So, something should be done to streamline the recruitment process of professors in the education system. With this, we move on to the next article. The next important news appears on page 8, which reads Reform with Caution. This article begins with a discussion on the Malimath Committee report, which has focused on reforming the criminal justice system. So the Malimath Committee has made 158 recommendations pertaining to matters of reforms in the criminal procedure and judicial process. A detailed discussion about the Malimath Committee report has been done in the DNS video dated 17th January 2018. So in order to understand Malimath Committee recommendations in detail, you can refer to this video. However, in today's article, it has been suggested that the Malimath Committee recommendations must be revisited through the prism of civil rights. Now, for this purpose, a reference has been given to the Draft National Policy on Criminal Justice 2007, which has been prepared by the Madhav Menon Committee. Now, the Madhav Menon Committee suggested that there is dissatisfaction among the common people regarding the criminal justice system, and this dissatisfaction has resulted due to various reasons. Some of them are, firstly, low rate of conviction in criminal cases. Secondly, role of money and influence in the outcome of criminal cases. Thirdly, delayed and denied justice, lack of protection to witnesses, and so on. So it is clear from these reasons that all these affect the basic human rights of citizens of the country. Hence, in light of these reasons, the article has suggested that the Malimath Committee report must bring about reforms in the criminal justice system, but these reforms should not come at the cost of undermining the justice system, and at the same time they should not adversely affect the basic human rights. From the UPSC exam point of view, a student should also understand that the constituents of the judicial system include police, prosecution, courts, prisons, and correctional services. And these constituents of the judicial system are governed by three independent elements. These elements are the laws, which include both the Indian Penal Code and the Code of Criminal Procedure. Secondly, these constituents are governed by institutions, and these institutions have been set up to enforce these laws. And these institutions are run by personnel, and the quality of these personnel influences the administration of these institutions. From the UPSC exam point of view, this topic is important from the governance, rights issue and security topic. Also, questions can be asked about the Malimath Committee report, about criminal reforms, and about basic prison rights and prison reforms. With this, we move on to the next article. The next important news appears on page 8, which reads A Risky Recovery. Now, this news basically talks about IMF's January update of World Economic Outlook, and it also talks about the role of current monetary policy stance on the level of economic growth. This article is important from the economy section point of view of the UPSC exam, and you should read it from the mains exam perspective. Now, the article begins by saying that IMF, or International Monetary Fund, has released the January update of its World Economic Outlook report, and under this, it has projected that the global growth is expected to increase to 3.9% in 2018 and 2019. Also, IMF has given projections for India's growth. As per the projections, India's growth is expected to increase to 7.4% in 2019 and further increase to 7.8% in 2020. And if these projections come true, then it will make India the fastest growing major economy in the next year. So till now, we have understood that the World Economic Outlook report is released by IMF, and under it, it provides projections for global growth as well as country-wise growth. Now, along with these projections, IMF has also given certain warnings about this potential growth in India. Basically, under this, IMF has suggested that this growth should not come at the cost of financial stability of a country. So here we need to understand the link between growth of an economy and financial stability in the economy. So there is a possibility that the growth in the economy may be high, but at the same time, there is financial instability in a country. This may result due to two reasons. Firstly, growth can be unstable if it is highly debt financed. Now let us understand how does debt financed growth lead to financial instability. So as we all know that if debt levels of the government are very high, it may result in inflation in the economy, and hence this may result in financial instability. The second reason which has been pointed out is that growth is unstable if it is brought about by easy money policy. Since we all know, easy monetary policy basically means expanding money supply in the economy by cutting down interest rates. Now let us first understand how easy monetary policy leads to growth in the economy. As we all know, when money supply increases, this leads to an increase in level of aggregate demand in the economy. And when aggregate demand rises, we know that income or GDP in the economy increases, leading to GDP growth. However, this increase in money supply may result in financial instability. This is because an increase in money supply implies an increase in inflation in the economy, and this may lead to financial instability in the country. Now, till now, we have understood that growth in the economy is increasing, but this growth may be unstable if it is highly debt financed or if it is highly dependent on easy monetary policy. So in order to avoid this situation, IMF has suggested, or we can say that IMF has urged the countries to bring in structural reforms in the economy rather than relying on debt financed growth or on easy monetary policy. So we come across this term structural reforms many times in the newspapers. Let us understand the basic meaning of this term structural reforms. Structural reforms basically means those reforms which change the way the government or an economy works. For example, any change in the tax system of the country, any change in the labor market of the country, all these changes constitute structural reforms. Also, these reforms change the structure of the economy in such a way so as to bring long-term growth in the economy. If you want to understand structural reforms through an example, then we know that the new economic policy of 1991 was a structural reform of the economy. This is because it introduced reforms across all sectors of the economy in the form of liberalization, privatization and globalization. In the recent context, we can say GST is a structural reform in the economy because it has changed the way the tax system of the country works. And this will lead to, or this will have an impact on the long-term growth of the economy. So the gist of the article is that monetary policy usually provides a short-term stimulus to growth. Whereas if an economy undertakes structural reforms, then this will lead to long-term growth in the economy. So the IMF has suggested that in order to achieve these high growth projections, monetary policy should be complemented with structural reforms in order to boost long-term economic growth. So with this article, we have understood the importance of monetary policy to achieve growth in the economy, and at the same time, we have understood the importance of structural reforms to bring about growth in the economy. With this, let us move on to the next article. The next important article appears on page 8, which reads, Making Our Roads Safe. So what does this news talk about? In this article, it has been stated that the government of India has restated its commitment as a signatory to the Brasilia Declaration And under this declaration, India has made a commitment to reduce the number of road accidents and fatalities by 50%, and this has to be achieved by 2020. So in order to fulfill these commitments, the Motor Vehicles Amendment Bill 2017 was tabled by the Ministry of Road Transport and Highways, and this amendment bill has been passed to make suitable changes in the previous Motor Vehicles Act of 1988. This bill till now has been passed by the Lok Sabha. So let us quickly understand the major provisions proposed in the Motor Vehicles Amendment Bill 2017. Firstly, this bill has proposed to create a national transportation policy for the country. It has also proposed to create a digitized, uniform and centralized driver's licensing system. This bill has also proposed digitization in monitoring and enforcement of traffic laws. Next, the bill has proposed special measures for child safety. It has also aimed to increase the penalties for behavior that results in fatalities and grievous injuries. So from this article, questions pertaining to the Brasilia Declaration on Road Safety can be asked in the prelims exam. Also, questions pertaining to the Motor Vehicles Amendment Bill 2017 can be asked in the prelims exam. With this, we move on to the next article. The next important article appears on page 11, which reads, India-ASEAN Cultural Ties, a Living Link, says Sushma Swaraj. This article basically talks about the ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit, which is going to take place on 25th and 26th January. And for this purpose, all the 10 ASEAN leaders are official guests for the Republic Day celebrations. Now, as we know that ASEAN, or the Association of Southeast Asian Nations, is an organization to accelerate economic growth, social progress and cultural development among its 10 members. And the member nations of ASEAN are Brunei, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Malaysia, Myanmar, Philippines, Singapore, Thailand and Vietnam. This ASEAN-India Commemorative Summit is being held to celebrate 25 years of India-ASEAN relations. In this respect, we should know that India became a sectoral partner of ASEAN in 1992. Also, this commemorative summit will celebrate 15 years of summit partnership between India and ASEAN and 5 years of strategic partnership between India and ASEAN. As of now, this news is in transition and we should wait for the summit to be over to discuss its important implications. With this, we come to an end to today's newspaper discussion. If you wish to interact with the members of Rao's Focus team, you can join Rao's Focus Facebook page, whose link is given in the description box below. Now, let's move on to question for the day.